Good morning, welcome to Morning Outlook. This is Kim speaking on Tuesday the 28th of November. So looking at the euro dollar, and well, yesterday we put a shooting star in, and now it's pretty much pitched in the middle of nowhere effectively. That there was no obvious place. I even looked up at the weeklies here, not an obvious sort of point of for where it's pitched. Side of, well, nothing really. So that's where we got to. Now, looking down the picture then, and we've got, just checking here, the weekly pivot just slightly below us still. The way it's rolling at the moment, it could well roll back towards that weekly pivot. Now, yesterday left the pivot, a daily pivot above us, so we're between a bit of a rock and a hard place at the moment, but the hard place seems like a more likely point, i.e. the weekly pivot in terms of its current trend. So for it to be running up to the dailies, I'd need to see it breaking through that 34.21 sort of zone of those moving averages there sitting there. At the moment, as I said, it does look weak, but post 8 o'clock and things can change. But with the move that we've seen there, the weekly pivot to the downside, and if not that, the S1 at 1875, that sort of area may just provide a bit of support. But with that weekly pivot and the actually I've got 30-minute 200 here, so 60-minute 100 there would be a reasonable target. Okay, that's the euro, the pound. Pound also, well, we've had a bit of stress testing coming out on the banks, and I said stress testing. The report of the stress testing is out on the banks, and even with a disorderly Brexit, as it was put, the banks could manage. So that's that then. So goodness, Dr. Gloom is been half positive about something. Now, looking then at where we are, again, looking bearish here at the moment, coming down to this 60 minutes, and well, lower high. It's not quite confirmed until we break that 100 and close below that prior low there. So if we break yesterday's lows, well, possible for a move on, and it's still got to move on, possibly down to that weekly pivot and the daily S1. So that's where we're sitting at the moment. Obviously the daily pivot with the good news, well, the good news spread to their friends first, maybe at 6 o'clock there with the bullishness going on in the pound, followed by the reality, and it's sold on the news maybe. And well, as I say, it's erring towards the lower side here, but we'll see how it reacts this just after 8 o'clock. And it hasn't hit the R1 yet. There is a possibility if we start moving up and put a bit of a bottom in here, we could push that way. I would be looking at all the pairings, but with the stability test out there, it's a reasonable bit of positivity there, relatively, he says. Okay, dollar yen. Dollar yen, a little bit of reversal going on. It sold off most of yesterday, whereas the others retraced, and this continued strengthening against US dollar. Has got the weekly pivot untouched above it. Air kissed it yesterday. I say air kissed it, it was a bit of a distance away. It could be pushing up for that today. It's just rolled down into the weekly S1 pivot at the moment. Could be pushing up it, and if it breaks that 60-minute 50, well, it certainly looks much more positive. We'll be at that point probably moving into higher low territory. It already has actually put a higher low in, I see there at the very bottom, from a divergence initially 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon, so it wasn't too far behind the curve when it started turning. But for now though, as I said, it does look more positive to the upside here, so maybe the dollar may regain some of its losses over the last week or so. Let's get the right Aussie dollar on the dailies here first, and again, well, here we rolled into the daily 21. It's quite key because for a long time since it's been touched, and that's had its reaction. I say yesterday, beg your pardon, today it's barely moved. It's another one that rolled over in the afternoon there in the 12 o'clock session. They started rolling, and it certainly went with the others here. Already hit the weekly pivot there, and I think we probably caught the daily so far. So, yep, and it does look on this sort of daily picture. It could end, hourly picture. It could end up with an hourly pivot swing to the downside there. A weak signal. I say a weak signal, a signal showing weakness, which could continue through, maybe down towards yesterday's lows or more. The way it's moving, it hasn't had a lot of volatility through the Asian session in real terms, so there's the potential for it to keep on rolling if the other markets are doing similar. And as I say, it really depends. We're seeing quite a lot of movement around the sort of 8 o'clock time, and they're giving us a sort of often a change in direction. Okay, we've got OPEC meetings starting today. I'm reading that in some people's view, it could be a bit more choppy than expected. Of course, there is a glut of oil out there, and it really depends on how well the OPEC meeting goes. But oil is sitting there nearing, or has been nearing, well, it's sitting at $59, it has been. Getting closer and closer to $60. There's plenty of oil, and the question will be whether some will start producing a little bit more, or whether they can agree on what they're producing at the moment. But most members have cut back. I think all the members of OPEC have actually cut back, and it's whether they can continue to hold on their current rate of production, which is holding the oil price artificially higher. But there we are. Now that will affect the Canadian dollar most likely. Its prices reflects oil prices a lot of the time and other commodities. So we'll see what happens. But for now, well, yesterday it reflected the stronger dollar coming through there, and well, we could push up further. Now, there are rumours of or comments regarding the vote on the tax system in the US, the tax bill. There is an uncertainty there, so there's a possibility that we could get some volatility kicking around that later as the US market comes to play. So that's it for me. No other data, so watch out for this afternoon, and watch for the OPEC data if you're trading the Canadian dollar. As I said, it does look bullish at the moment, and I'll just flick through the charts there, and you see anything that has missed out today is a daily pivot. So if we did see some positive news coming out for sort of strong oil, that would be quite a nice target maybe later on. Have a great one. Bye for now.